One of the great lies of our culture is that if we explore our dark side, we're going to be infected by it. Meaning that if we look at the bad thoughts, the bad traits, our bad histories, maybe that's abuse, maybe that's poor relationships in our life, that if we look at that, if we deeply examine it, we're going to empower it more. And literally the opposite is true. If we don't explore our dark sides, we're going to become them, but we're going to become them in very interesting ways. And this is where it becomes a real problem, and that we see over and over again in the coaching and in the psychological realms, is that it will come out in the biggest decisions of your life. So whether that's relationships, whether that's the abstract, so emotions in relationships, sex in relationships, or fatherhood or motherhood, or relationships that cut deep with your parents and so on, that's where these things are going to come out. So what I want to talk about now are some ways of exploring that dark side without completely losing your mind. So when it comes to the subconscious, when it comes to things that sit in the subconscious, like shame, like anger, like sadness, like dealing with tragedy or trauma, they sit in the abstract very often. They don't sit in the literal, meaning our literal lives are going to work. It's what we tell our friends. It's how we present ourselves. It's our surface level identity that could be seen as the ego, that could be seen as different parts of your personality and so on. But those things, we have a great world to manage all of that, and it's amazing. It's an awesome, awesome thing. We have the opportunity to where we can present ourselves in all these dynamic ways. We can work however we want. But our world doesn't often have an outlet, in fact, almost never, and very much so it denies the outlet for dealing with those things that are abstract or different. So when we have things like abuse growing up, or we have trauma in relationships, or we have the bad picker, or whatever it is, and we keep finding ourselves in these holes of life, one of the things that happens is it's usually a part of that dark side that we've ignored. So one of the best things that we could do is, number one, surround ourselves with good people, have a support system, and a support system that can talk to you about this. Now, this is the whole point of the reason why I have men's groups. And the reason why I have those men's groups is because we're all focused on the same goal. That we want to better ourselves. We understand the process. And one of the problems that you have with just friends, which friends are great, I'm not saying that's bad, but oftentimes with just friends, you're used to talking in that social persona. You're used to talking about your work. You're used to talking about different things that bug you, but not the deep, deep things in there. And so when you have a group, and that could be a church group, that could be a different support group, that could be a 12-step organization, there's all sorts of different types of groups that are focused on bettering yourself. But if you have that group to support you in those times when you're exploring this stuff, that is key. That is rule number one. If you do not have a support system of people, of like-minded people, then I would really recommend exploring the darker sides of yourself is difficult. One of the best ways to do this is going to be through journaling and through meditation. So one of the things that I do every day, either morning or night, or sometimes both, is I spend about 20 minutes going into meditation, thinking about different things, and there's all sorts of different types, but then journaling about it afterwards. Now also, I bring that to my different groups that I talk about, and this is where it gets interesting. It gets very abstract, it gets very kind of crazy. I've done it for a long time, which might not mean the best example of perfection or doing it right, but in doing it a long time, I'm very used to how my mind speaks and how it brings up these different things. Another thing which is super important in all of this is art or artistic expression. And once again, the things that are locked in our subconscious are going to speak to us in that sort of way. And that's very, very important. One of the things that I would say to start out doing, and that we just covered with our group today, is that you make a list of 5 people that you have a problem with, some people that you may dislike, hate, whatever word you want to say, people that you have resentments over, and then 5 people that you have your closest relationships with. And you want to write down, your relationship with that person, whether it is why you dislike them or hate them, or why you have a great relationship with them, and so on. And if you start with that, usually that's a good window to beginning to dig deep into those darker sides of yourself. If you're interested in looking at this and getting to a point where you don't have different parts of your past or future, where you don't have different parts of your past haunt you throughout your life, through some of the biggest moments of your life, check out what we're doing at Austin Men's Development. It's It's an amazing thing. It's a Facebook group. You can come there and interact. And if you really want to get to work on stuff, check out the links down below and get on the Rebuild Challenge. And on that Rebuild Challenge, what you're going to find is for $20, you can, man, you get 3 calls a week, get a lot of interaction with myself, a lot of material to dive deep at the mind, the body, your social expression, your identity as a man, and your purpose, and how you can actually gain some functionality in that and dive deep into who you are as a man. It's really good stuff. I highly, highly recommend it. Should be in the links down below or in the link tree where you can access it and all that sort of good stuff. We'll talk to you guys later.